from an online perspective, it works surprisingly well. I think you absolutely miss a little bit of the human interaction that you usually get from a jury. You know, the amount of time that we spend like maybe having a drink in the bar afterwards and discussing the work that we would normally have if we were, you know, in Vegas, for example. But I think in terms of the discussions around the work and how well the kind of portal works for judging, it works really, really well. And I think in terms of, you know, judging at the LIA in general, you know, I always love judging. I love seeing the work, you know, from around the world, getting that bird's eye view of all the creative work that's on offer. And I think this year, you know, lots of really exciting work, lots of interesting work. And, you know, given the last couple of years that have been interesting anyway from a pandemic point of view, just kind of fascinating to see how the work reflects what's happening in the world. My North Star for judging, I think, and it's something we spoke about as a jury before we even started. And I think there are lots of things you draw on, like, you know, like 25 years of experience. And, you know, I look for the idea and I look for the execution. But I think if I were to boil it down into a single thing, it's work that makes me jealous. It's envy. Is the, you know, if I'm like, oh God, I wish I did that, then I know like it's a strong piece. I think the pandemic definitely affects the work, and that it's true of anything that happens in the world. Like the work that we create as a creative community is always absolutely reflective of what's happening in the world. What's happening in our individual countries, and in the case of the pandemic, like what's happening globally. And I think there were some interesting things, in terms of like, you know, I think brands responding to the pandemic and how they can almost, you know, shift their messaging or shift their tone. You know, and you'll see some work that's, you know, that is slightly more serious and deals with some of the more serious side effects of the pandemic, kind of, you know, reaching out to people. And you also see some work that's kind of at the, you know, later side of the pandemic that reflects a bit of the lighter side of the pandemic. So all the kind of human insights that we learned. And then you'll also see ways that, you know, brands are kind of thinking out the box to, you know, adapt what they're doing. You know, if they can't respond in the real world, they're thinking about how can I respond from an audio perspective. So definitely affects the work, and in a really good way. I think any kind of challenge always brings out the best in creative people, because it's, you know, we have to find solutions. It's what we do. It was a very fair jury, to be honest. You know, like, and that's largely reflective of the process. We don't just go, there are lots of rounds of judging, and we are constantly reevaluating, you know, the decisions we've made. We're constantly discussing, you know, do we need to pull that down? Do we need to pull that up? Do we need more in that category? Less? Have we judged this correctly? Should we listen to this again? Do we need background on this? That whole process makes for a very fair end result, I think. And I certainly felt like at the end of the day, we made very fair kind of decisions. So I think in terms of the goals, I think we put good humor in. It performed well in a lot of categories and came up in a lot of categories. We put it in Zeitgeist, I think, because it felt like it was such a good reflection of what's happening in the world and a response to that. piece of marketing that is a response to that. And I think that was really its strength, beyond being a piece of music or a single execution. It was the way it responded to the world, I think, and the way it tapped into how people are feeling, you know, as a global community. And that's where it really sang, I think. In terms of the Burger King confusing times, I think here's an example of something that, you know, is a classic piece of radio. And it certainly tapped into, you know, how people were feeling over the pandemic, and some of the insights and the more humorous, the lighter kind of insights that came out, you know, from the pandemic, which I think was really kind of refreshing, because there was a lot of very heavy work, you know, obviously that came out during this time. But I think beautiful script writing, like elegantly put together, you know, just like a flawless kind of campaign that really deserved those goals that it got. And then I would say the last one was Swim Island. And this is an interesting one because it was just a single, but I think the feeling in the room was like, this was a great little script idea, very, very simple little script idea. Like the performance of the child in the spot was absolutely excellent. And anyone who's ever tried to direct, you know, a child in a commercial knows the kind of how difficult that can be. So I think brilliant on that side. The directing, the effort that was gone into of how they put this together, you know, getting live sound, how they produced it. I think overall, just a really, really sharp, excellent little piece of radio. And I think proof that something can be really a simple idea, brilliantly executed, and still be awarded in a category. Um, uh, I think is exactly what that Swim Island spot does so well. So yeah.